Some ominous words today from Russian President Vladimir Putin on the heels of Donald Trump's re-election. Putin said the struggle for a, quote, new world order is underway and the moment of truth is coming. Putin often speaks using such vague terms, but with Trump soon to take office, much could change in regard to U.S. foreign policy as wars rage on, not just in Ukraine, but in Gaza and Lebanon. The president-elect and his cabinet will have thorny decisions to make on possible peace proposals as well as foreign aid. Our chief foreign correspondent Ian Pannell has this report.
Tonight, President-elect Trump poised to try to chart a new course forward for two historic regional conflicts, in Ukraine and in the Middle East. Trump has long cast himself as a stalwart defender of Israel, moving the US embassy from Tel Aviv to Israel's capital, Jerusalem, in 2018. Israel had long lobbied for that move, but previous administrations held it out as an incentive to be delivered after the establishment of a Palestinian state alongside Israel. Trump telling Fox News in July that Israel needs to end the war in Gaza as soon as possible.
You have to end this fast. It can't continue to go on like this. It's too long. It's too much. You got to get your hostages back.
But a day later, while meeting with Netanyahu at Mar-a-Lago, Trump publicly only mentioning the hostages and not the pace of the war.
That's a very tough situation. The hostages, they have to be given back immediately because there can be no way that they're in good shape.
Trump's July comments coming after Netanyahu praised the former president during his address to Congress. As clashes continue between Israel and Iranian-backed proxies in Lebanon, Gaza and beyond, Israel and Iran have also traded fire directly in recent weeks. The Biden administration has sought to de-escalate tensions, urging Israel not to strike Iran's nuclear and oil facilities. Trump, however, urging less caution, saying last month that Israel should hit Iranian nuclear sites first and worry about the rest later, but also saying he'd be open to striking a new deal with Iran to prevent it from developing a nuclear weapon. And when it comes to Ukraine, the stakes couldn't be higher for the war-torn nation.
The rusting remains of Russia's war machine here on Mykolaiv Square are a good reminder for Ukrainians every single day that this war, now almost 2.5 years long, is still very much active. But they don't need this to remind them. There are the constant air raid sirens, the bombs, the missiles, the rockets, the artillery, the attacks by Russians who are advancing even now on the eastern front line.
Ukraine recently pleading to the US and NATO partners, asking that they be allowed to use long-range missiles provided by the West to hit strategic targets deeper inside Russia, believing it'll change the outcome of the war. Ukraine's received over $175 billion worth of US aid since the start of the war, the most from any nation by far.
A lasting peace for Ukraine must be underwritten by Ukraine's own ability to defend itself now and to deter future aggression anytime in the future.
Trump himself claimed he'd end the war in Ukraine on his first day in office.
Within 24 hours, that war will be settled. It'll be over. It'll be absolutely over.
Do you want Ukraine to win this war?
I don't think in terms of winning and losing.
Russian forces continue to chip away at Ukrainian-held territory along a wide portion of the front line. And the situation on the battlefield for Ukraine is as bleak as at any time since the start of the war. Trump suggested he'd force Ukraine and Russia to the bargaining table by telling Zelenskyy he won't get more aid, while also telling Putin that the United States will dramatically increase aid to Ukraine if a deal isn't hammered out quickly.
I would tell Zelenskyy, no more. You got to make a deal. I would tell Putin, if you don't make a deal, we're going to give them a lot. We're going to give them more than they ever got.
In the meantime, the Biden administration just today pledging that $9 billion worth of US assistance will keep flowing to Ukraine until January 20th. Nonetheless, world leaders continue to express concern about Trump's relationship with Putin, especially after he said he'd give Putin the green light to invade NATO member states that aren't meeting their military spending goals.
If we don't pay and we're attacked by Russia, will you protect us? No, I would not protect you. In fact, I would encourage them to do whatever the hell they want.
And though Zelenskyy congratulated Trump on his win, Trump's relationship with Zelenskyy is said to remain frosty since an infamous phone call in 2019 ultimately led to Trump's first impeachment, when he allegedly withheld $400 million in aid and weaponry under the condition that Zelenskyy promised to investigate Hunter Biden, the president's son, and his involvement in the Ukrainian energy company Burisma. Trump telling Zelenskyy there's a lot of talk about Biden's son, that Biden stopped the prosecution, so if you can look into it. But so much can happen between now and Inauguration Day. And for beleaguered Palestinians, as with war-weary Ukrainians, the stakes couldn't be higher.
Certainly high stakes here. Our chief foreign correspondent Ian Pannell joins us now from London. And Ian, I know you travel often to both Ukraine as well as Israel and know how U.S. politics are intertwined with both of those respective wars. Let's start with Ukraine. What are the immediate and long-term implications of a Donald Trump presidency?
Yeah, it's a very good question. It's a question everyone in Ukraine is asking, and elsewhere. Suddenly Ukraine seems to become the #1 foreign policy issue, and certainly the #1 issue, I think, facing the president-elect, not least because he had promised on the campaign trail repeatedly that he would bring an end to the war between Russia and Ukraine within 24 hours. Now, that seems highly unlikely, but how is he going to approach that? We've already had a conversation between President Zelenskyy and Donald Trump. No conversation between Vladimir Putin, although both leaders, both Putin and President-elect Trump, have said they're ready for this. How do you bring an end to the war? The reality on the battlefield is that things look really bad for Ukraine at the moment, arguably as bad as at any point since the start of the war. So they need some kind of settlement. And when you talk to people inside Ukraine, they kind of accept that they probably lost Crimea and probably lost Donbass. So I think a kind of longer-term solution potentially looks at accepting that that land has gone, but only in exchange for meaningful security guarantees. Again, talk to any Ukrainian, and the whole idea that America should be the arbiter of some kind of peace agreement, they'll talk to you about 1991. This was, of course, when Ukraine handed over its nuclear weapons, its fighter jets, its tanks, its armored personnel carriers, in exchange for security guarantees that proved to be meaningless when Vladimir Putin wanted to invade. So I think right now what we're seeing is haggling. Zelenskyy addressing 40-odd European leaders today, basically saying that it would be suicidal for Europe to just make an immediate deal, to impose a deal on Ukraine. So Zelenskyy keeps talking about a just peace. In other words, a peace where Ukraine gets the security guarantees it wants. Vladimir Putin also saying that he's heard promises made on the campaign trail by Trump, and that he's also willing to at least listen to what those proposals are. Potentially, Donald Trump could shake up this conflict in a way that President Biden has been unable to. But we just have to wait and see what his promises actually mean in practice.
It's fascinating that these conversations are starting to happen so quickly. And what about Israel's wars with Hamas and Hezbollah and the civilians caught in the middle in Gaza and Lebanon?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to see that things look any better for beleaguered Palestinians than they do for beleaguered Ukrainians at the moment, perhaps even less so. You know, remember, during his last term in office, as I mentioned in my report, President Trump moved the U.S. Embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem, something that was pretty unthinkable before that time. He has a very good relationship with Netanyahu. Netanyahu issued this gushing message of support and congratulations to President Trump, or President-elect Trump, after his election victory. The two leaders have already spoken. Trump set out his stall as being strongly behind Israel. Now, of course, the Biden administration was also strongly behind Israel, and the policies of the Biden administration did little to help the Palestinians, especially in Gaza. But I think the question for Trump and for Netanyahu is Iran. I think Trump has said that he wants to bring an end to the conflict that is going on in Gaza, in the West Bank, in Lebanon and elsewhere. That is potentially possible as part of a wider regional deal that brings in other Arab countries. But Iran is the outlier here. I think President Trump seems to agree with Benjamin Netanyahu that Iran represents a real lasting danger to Israel. And the question is, what will the policies be to try and curtail Iran? You know, Israel certainly looking for more length on the rope to be able to go after Iran. So I don't think there's going to be any immediate comfort or relief for the Palestinians or for people of southern Lebanon anytime soon.
All right, Ian Pannell for us. Ian, our thanks to you as always.